Welcome. This is Breadcrumbs. My name is Reginald Grant. Today I'm going to talk about, cover three things basically. One, I'm going to talk about the distinctions between the dreams as I understand them. Second, I'm going to talk about recent dreams that I've had and some that are 5, 10 years old. And then I'm going to talk about some of the words and phrases that I've both seen written and that I've heard in my dreams. So let's get started. Distinctions in my dreams. So the first type is I would consider spiritual. It's about things that are possible and that are perceived and conceived in my spirit as I'm dreaming. It's about belief, will, trust, the relationships thereof. And the second type of dream is more about intellect, things regarding the laws of physics, things like left, right, up, down, and thought. So in both types, I see, hear, I feel, and I sense things in my particular dreams. So now let's talk about a few of my recent dreams that I've had. In this one particular dream, I was looking at my legs and my feet, and my left foot was on my right leg. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is weird, but not so. And I saw that I had a sixth toe. And a memory came to me about when I was a young teenager. I don't know if it was at school or just one of the neighborhood kids. One of them had a little nub or a sixth finger on his one of his hands. That came to mind when I was thinking about this. So for some reason, I started to count my toes, my left foot that was on my right leg, and I was counting, and I had 6 toes, but each time I counted, I came up with 10 on my right foot. And regardless of how many times I counted, I always came up with 10 instead of the 6 that I could see and that I knew was there. And I became a little perplexed in the sense that, wait a minute, how do I keep coming up with 10 and I know I have 6? And I did this about 4 or 5 times. I kept counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then after doing this 4 or 5 times, I saw a number pad like you would see on an old phone. It was 1 through 9 and 0. So that was that particular dream. So the next one I want to talk about is I had 2 recent dreams, 2 separate dreams, about 2 weeks apart, involving snakes. So in the first one, I was outside and I could see a black billowing smoke, and it was a fire. For some reason, a bridge was on fire, and I thought, well, that's weird. How can a bridge be on fire when it's made out of cement, concrete, whatever, and steel and what not have you? So I walked closer to it, and I could see there might have been someone up there inside of the fire. And then I kept walking closer, and I could see the fire was consuming, because of the fire, looks like wood planks or whatever was falling down to the ground because of the fire. And then I could see people, I see a person or two, and they had looked like to be a cart with personal items on it. They were moving it from one place to another. And then I saw a snake, and the snake lunged at me, and I caught it by the head, and I was going to kill it. I mean, I was squeezing this snake's head really hard and really tight, and he was trying to get away, but I wouldn't let it get away, and I was going to kill it by just squeezing the life out of it. And then the snake would try to duck retreat his head into his body, but I wouldn't let it, and I kept squeezing harder and harder. And then somehow he opened his mouth trying to bite me with his fangs, and I could feel his fangs that protruded out on the side of my hand that I was holding his head with. But I wouldn't let it go. And then at some point I was thinking to myself, not to let it bite me, but if it does, I need to be somewhere where I could get help. So I'm still squeezing the head of the snake, and I decided to throw it up, and I found something sharp, and I cut it in half. And the half with the head scurried, and got away. So about 2 weeks later, I'm having a dream, and there was this little hole, and there were two snakes, looked to be two snakes, and one came and lunged out at me. And again, I caught it by the head, and I was squeezing it tight, trying to kill it. And again, his fangs came out of his mouth and touched the side of my fingers where on the hand that I was holding his head with. And I was still squeezing it pretty tight. He never wrapped his body around me, squeezed my arm, anything like that. But this particular time, he got away and scurried away, and I sort of halfway went looking for it. So that was the end of that particular dream. Now, this dream that I'm discussing now was probably 5-10 years ago. In this particular dream, this lady, I was looking at this lady's eye, and she had something in her eye. I couldn't really tell what it was, but it looked like a microchip. And then I thought to myself, was she trying to smuggle something? Had no clue whatsoever. And then about 2-3 years ago, I had another dream about this particular item that was in this woman's eye, but this time I saw it on the corner of a box. Nothing particular about the box or its contents, just that this particular item that I saw in this woman's eye looked like a microchip was on the corner of the box that I saw in my dream. So, now I'm talking about a dream that I had. This was quite a while ago. And I heard, this should be phrases, but anyway, I heard this particular dream that they were holding Americans. So apparently these Americans have been, of course, held against their will, and they were held in a foreign country. And this one particular woman who was being held, she was thinking to herself that her family and her friends thought she was dead. And then years later, I had a dream that I believe was associated with that, is that the number of the people that were there were 54. But they were, most, if not all of them, were women. So that goes on. So now I'm talking about, I saw these two women at the airport, and one of them, there was two women, and they had an infant with them. And this infant was in a little carrier, whatever. And one of the women was carrying this infant. I don't know if it was a boy or girl, who the women were, the relationship to the child. But this one of the women, they were at the airport, and one of the women went into the restroom. Well, while going into the restroom, it seems as though she lifted, I could see underneath the blanket, and I was looking at the child, and the child was lethargic, almost like the infant was dead. And the woman who had the child, who went in the restroom, was thinking that to herself, wondering if the baby was dead and what not have you. But when she got into the restroom, she was mixing these liquids together. I don't know what they were. And there was a little gadget, and the gadget was flashing red. There was a red light associated with this particular gadget, and it was flashing, blinking red light. Well, this random woman comes into the restroom, and she says, "Oh, how cool it is that a man, is taking care of the baby, changes diaper, would not have you." So then this woman who was with this child left the restroom and went to meet up with the other woman. This other woman seemed to be a little bit more bossy, aggressive. She was probably, in charge, seemed the more dominant one. And so the woman comes out of the restroom with the baby and shows her that this particular device was working. And I could see the red light flashing on this particular device. So then they began to go to, I guess, their gate to board their plane. Well, on the way there, somehow I felt brushed against felt the skin of the baby, and it was burning hot. And at some point, the baby stretched out as to be in distress, and the woman who was carrying the baby became concerned. So the other woman told her, "Don't worry about it. It's just a reaction to something. I don't know." So as they're walking to, I guess, their gate or whatever to get on the plane, I heard that these are the two women that the authorities were looking for. And then I heard a voice say, "What can I do?" And then I heard another voice say, "Not to let them get on the plane." And that is the end of that particular dream. All right, so now I'm going to talk about some of the phrases and the words that I've heard and seen written in my dreams. So some of the words that I've heard was lumber, plastic, and salt. Not assault, but salt. And I've seen and heard the word written down. Some of them I've seen written down, and some I've just heard. That was ugly. So, again, these words, as we know them, may have a different meaning regarding in spiritual terms, or their application or the relationship thereof to us. And some of the phrases that I've heard was, "These two fail. You better take 50,000." And I knew I was getting the money. And another phrase that I'll end with for this particular episode is, "The victory of Jesus Christ at Calvary is mine." And this was, some of these are 20 years old. So now I'm just sharing and making them public. All right, so that concludes today's episode. I want to thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. As always, if you haven't subscribed, and if you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions, please let me know. You can always email me at dowreggie@outlook.com. And have a great day.